The metal handcuffs bit into my wrists, cold enough to burn. But that wasn't what made me shiver. It was my son's laughter echoing through the courtroom that cut straight through my heart. 3 years, Mom, Andrew called out from the gallery, his voice dripping with satisfaction. 3 years to think about what you did. I was 68 years old. I'd raised this man alone after his father died of a stroke when Andrew was 30. I'd worked double shifts as a nurse for 35 years so he could have everything he needed. And now he was celebrating as they led me away in chains for crimes I didn't commit. Judge Hamilton Richards banged his gavel, demanding order, but the damage was done. The sentence had been read. 3 years in federal prison for financial fraud and embezzlement. My own son had just won the case that would destroy my life. I turned to look at Andrew one more time. He sat in the front row, arm draped around his wife Rachel, both of them wearing expressions of pure victory. Rachel leaned in and whispered something in his ear, and Andrew laughed again, louder this time, making sure I heard it. The bailiff tugged my arm. "Let's go, Mrs. Miller." My knees protested. At 68, every sudden movement hurts, but I forced myself to stand straight. I wouldn't give them the pleasure of seeing me crumble. Not here. Not in front of all these strangers who'd already judged me guilty. As they led me toward the side exit, I heard the murmurs. Some people looked at me with pity, others with disgust. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd known me for 20 years, looked away when our eyes met. The shame felt heavier than the handcuffs. But what they didn't know, what Andrew and Rachel couldn't possibly know, was that I had one card left to play. A secret so well hidden that even my own son had no idea it existed. And that secret was going to change everything. I met Robert Sterling on a Thursday afternoon in October at the Morgan Gallery in Manhattan. I'd almost stayed home. My friend Susan had been nagging me for weeks to get out more, to start living again after 12 years of widowhood. I'd gotten comfortable in my loneliness, my garden, my books, my quiet routines. At 67, I'd accepted that this was my life now. But something made me go that day. Robert stood in front of a painting of sunflowers, his silver hair perfectly combed, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. But it wasn't his appearance that caught my attention. It was the look in his eyes as he studied that painting. A profound sadness I recognized because I saw it in my own mirror every morning. "My wife loved sunflowers," he said without looking at me, as if he sensed my presence. "She planted them every spring in our garden." "My husband did too," I replied softly. "He died 15 years ago. Stroke. That's how it started. 2 lonely souls finding unexpected connection." We talked for 2 hours that day. Coffee the next week, then dinner, then walks through Central Park where autumn leaves crunched under our feet, and Robert told me about his late wife, Catherine, who died of cancer 3 years earlier. Robert was honest about who he was. A real estate developer worth hundreds of millions with business connections reaching all the way to Washington. But he was also careful, almost paranoid. "I need you to understand something, Helen," he said during our 4th date, holding my hands across a candlelit table. "I've been burned before. Badly. 5 years ago, someone tried to kidnap my niece to extort money from me. People I trusted have used my relationships as weapons." He looked into my eyes. "If we're going to be together, truly together, I need time to put protections in place. Security measures. Legal safeguards. I know it sounds crazy, but..." "It sounds like you're trying to keep me safe," I interrupted. "And I understand that." We married in secret 3 months later. A simple ceremony at his Westchester estate with just a justice of the peace and 2 trusted witnesses. We exchanged plain gold bands that we wore on chains under our clothes, hidden from the world. 2 weeks, Robert promised, kissing my forehead. 2 weeks to finalize the security arrangements, and then we tell everyone. We can live openly. I agreed because after 12 years alone, Robert had given me back something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. But I made a fatal mistake. I didn't tell Andrew. I kept thinking I'd have time, just 2 more weeks. Then I'd introduce my son to his new stepfather, and everything would be perfect. Andrew would be happy for me. I was such a fool. Andrew used to be a good son. I have to believe that, or I'll lose my mind. When his father died, Andrew was there for me. He held me while I sobbed at the funeral. He helped sort through his father's belongings. He called every Sunday to check on me. But over the years, things changed. The Sunday calls became monthly, then sporadic. He was busy with his marketing career. He had his own life. I understood. Children grow up. They move on. Then, 4 years ago, he met Rachel. Rachel Thompson, beautiful, ambitious Rachel with her glossy dark hair and practiced smile. A marketing director at a tech firm, driving a BMW she couldn't quite afford, wearing designer clothes that screamed success. Andrew was completely smitten. They married within a year, and from that moment on, I barely saw my son. Rachel always had excuses. Andrew's busy with work. We're traveling. We've got plans. Always polite. Always a wall between me and my son. I tried to like her. I invited them to dinner, sent birthday cards, asked about their lives. But something in Rachel's eyes when she looked at me made my skin crawl. Something cold and calculating. "You're imagining things," Andrew said when I mentioned it. "Rachel's just intense. That's how she is." I should have trusted my instincts. 3 months ago, everything changed. Andrew showed up at my house on a Saturday morning, Rachel in tow, carrying croissants and wearing that smile that never reached her eyes. "Surprise," Andrew said, hugging me a bit too tightly. "We brought breakfast." We sat in my kitchen and Andrew got straight to business. "Mom, Rachel and I have been talking about your finances." My stomach tightened. "My finances?" "We want to make sure you're secure," Rachel interjected smoothly. "Have you thought about estate planning, protecting your assets?" "I'm comfortable," I said carefully. "I have my pension, my savings, the house." Andrew and Rachel exchanged a glance. "The thing is," Andrew continued, "I've got some financial problems. An investment fell through and I'm in trouble, Mom. I need $50,000. I nearly choked. $50,000 was more than I spent in 2 years. "Andrew, I don't have that kind of money readily available. Please." He grabbed my hands and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "I made a mistake, a bad one. If I don't fix this, I could lose everything. Just a loan, 3 months. I swear I'll pay you back." Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, but he was my son, my only child, and he was scared. "I can give you $10,000, I said finally. "That's what I have in checking without penalties." Rachel's face flickered with something dark, gone in an instant. $10,000? Andrew repeated flatly. "That's it?" "Andrew, I'm retired. I live on a fixed income." He stood abruptly. "Fine, I'll take it." He left with a check for $10,000 and a promise to repay me. I never saw that money again. 2 weeks later, he needed $20,000 more. An emergency, a can't-miss opportunity. Like a fool, I liquidated a CD and gave it to him. That money vanished too. Then came the documents. Late January, Andrew arrived with a briefcase full of legal papers. "Mom, we need to protect you." He spread documents across my dining table, forms with tiny print and words like irrevocable trust and asset transfer. "What is this?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "Estate reorganization," Rachel explained, appearing like a shadow behind Andrew. "To protect your assets from future Medicaid recovery, tax issues. I want my own lawyer to review these." The temperature dropped. "You don't trust me?" Andrew's voice turned sharp. "I'm your son, your only family. I'm trying to help, and you're treating me like a criminal." "This is because of Rachel, isn't it?" He turned to his wife. "I told you she never liked you." Rachel's eyes filled with crocodile tears. "Helen, I only want what's best for this family." The manipulation was masterful. For a moment, I doubted myself. Was I being paranoid? Was I poisoning my relationship with my son over nothing? "I'll sign," I heard myself say. "But let me read everything first." I spent an hour reviewing those documents. The legal language was dense, complicated. As far as I could tell, it was legitimate. Protection in case of future health issues. I signed every page. 3 weeks later, the lawsuit arrived. The envelope came on a Tuesday. Heavy legal paper, return address, Morrison and Associates, attorneys at law. My hands shook as I opened it. My son was suing me. The complaint alleged I'd stolen $240,000 from joint accounts I supposedly shared with Andrew, that I'd forged his signature, that I'd manipulated documents and sent erratic emails demanding money. The evidence was extensive. Bank statements, emails I'd supposedly sent, witness statements from a forensic accountant named David Cooper I'd never heard of. All lies, every single word, but it looked terrifyingly real. I called Andrew immediately, barely able to hold the phone. "Andrew, what is this? Why are you—" "I'm sorry, Mom." His voice was flat, emotionless. "You left me no choice. You've been stealing from our joint accounts for months." "We don't have joint accounts. The documents you signed created them. Remember? The documents, the ones I'd trusted him with." "You changed them," I whispered. "After I signed, you altered them. Get a lawyer, Mom. A good one. You're going to need it." He hung up. I stood in my kitchen, where I'd raised him, taught him right from wrong, and felt my world shatter. My son had declared war on his own mother. I hired Jennifer Walsh, a public defender with good intentions and 40 other clients. She was all I could afford after Andrew froze my accounts. The trial lasted 3 days of hell. David Cooper testified that I'd asked him to falsify records. His testimony was detailed, specific, convincing. Complete lies. Andrew cried on the witness stand. Real tears as he described discovering his mother's betrayal. "I didn't want to believe it," he sobbed. "But the evidence was overwhelming." Rachel testified too, voice breaking as she described how I'd always been controlling with money, how I'd threatened to disinherit Andrew. More lies. The jury believed every word. Jennifer tried her best, but she was outmatched. She couldn't afford expert witnesses or challenge the forensic accounting. On day 3, the jury returned. Guilty. 3 years in federal prison. As they led me out in handcuffs, I saw Andrew and Rachel leave hand in hand, already planning how to spend my money. They thought they'd won. They had no idea I had one move left. The processing room smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. I sat handcuffed, waiting for transport to the federal facility where I'd spend 3 years. Officer James Sullivan reviewed my paperwork, a weathered man of about 60 with sad eyes. On his desk sat a photograph, a teenage girl with a bright smile. "Your daughter?" I asked hoarsely. He looked up, surprised. "Granddaughter, Sarah. She's 16. Something in his voice made me listen closer. "She's beautiful." "She's sick." The words escaped before he could stop them. "Heart defect. Needs surgery. Soon. Costs $150,000 our insurance won't cover." Everything clicked into place. I'd prepared for this moment. Last night in my cell, I'd written a note and hidden it in my jacket pocket. While James turned to his papers, I slipped my hand into that pocket and pulled out the folded note. This was my only chance. I placed it on his desk, positioning it like part of my file. 30 seconds later, James noticed. He picked it up, suspicious. "What's this?" "Read it, please." He unfolded the paper. I watched his face as he read. "My husband is Robert Sterling. Call him at 212-555-0147. Tell him his wife has been arrested. He will pay for Sarah's surgery and set up a trust for her education. I promise this on my life." James's hand shook. "Robert Sterling? The billionaire?" I nodded. "This is impossible. You're married to one of the richest men in New York and nobody knows?" "We married in secret 3 months ago. He wanted time to arrange security. I was going to tell Andrew after 2 weeks. I took a breath. But my son sued me first. James stared at the note, eyes wet. "If this is real, why didn't you tell anyone?" "Robert's in London, different time zone. By the time I reached him, the trial was over." I leaned forward. "James, I'm begging you. Make the call. If I'm lying, you've lost 5 minutes. If I'm telling the truth..." I looked at Sarah's photo. Your granddaughter lives. James closed his eyes, opened them, full of tears. Sarah's all I have left of my daughter. Jennifer died 3 years ago. Cancer. His voice broke. If there's any chance this is real, I have to take it. He pulled out his phone and dialed. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. 4th ring. Sterling? James nearly dropped the phone. Mr. Sterling, I'm Officer James Sullivan at County Detention. Your wife asked me to call you. Silence, then, Helen? Raw panic. What happened? Where is she? James's eyes went wide. This was real. She's here, sir. She's been arrested, convicted, about to be transported to federal prison. What? The roar echoed through the room. James handed me the phone with shaking hands. Robert? Helen, oh God, what's happening? Andrew did this, I whispered through tears. He fabricated everything and sent me to prison. He doesn't know about you. He thinks I'm alone. The silence was terrifying. When Robert spoke again, his voice was cold steel. Put Sullivan back on. I handed back the phone. I heard Robert's rapid commands. James's eyes grew wider with each word. Finally, yes, sir, I understand. I won't let anyone move her. He ended the call and stared at me in shock. What did he say? He said he's calling Judge Richards right now for an emergency stay. His legal team will be here within the hour. James's voice cracked. He said Sarah's surgery is next week at Mount Sinai, best cardiac team in the country, and there's a $500,000 trust fund for her education. He sat down heavily and sobbed. I closed my eyes. For the first time in months, I felt hope. 20 minutes after James made that call, my phone, Robert's phone really, rang again. James answered, listened, then looked at me with something close to awe. Judge Richards just issued a temporary stay on your transfer. You're to remain here until your legal representation arrives. He paused. Mrs. Miller, your husband just moved heaven and earth in less than 20 minutes. I smiled through my tears. That's Robert. There's more, James continued, his voice thick with emotion. Mr. Sterling's assistant already contacted Mount Sinai. Sarah's pre-op appointment is scheduled for Thursday. The surgery's next Monday. He had to stop, overcome. How do I even begin to thank you? You already did, I said quietly. You made the call when you had every reason not to believe me. You gave me hope when I had none left. We sat in that small processing room, 2 strangers bound by desperation and an impossible phone call, waiting for my new life to begin. 47 minutes later, the door burst open. Thomas Brennan entered like a force of nature. 6 feet tall, salt and pepper hair, charcoal suit that probably cost $5,000, and the confident stride of a man who'd never lost a case he cared about winning. Behind him came 2 younger attorneys carrying briefcases and a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a laptop bag. Helen Miller. Thomas extended his hand. I'm Thomas Brennan. Mr. Sterling retained me exactly 53 minutes ago. This is my associate Jennifer Park, paralegal David Chen, and forensic accountant Patricia Wong. I shook his hand, barely believing this was real. Where's Robert? On a private jet over the Atlantic. He'll land at Teterboro in 5 hours. Thomas pulled out a chair and sat across from me like we were in his office, not a detention center. But we're not waiting. Mrs. Miller, I need you to tell me everything. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. For the next 2 hours, I talked. I told them about Andrew's visits, the requests for money, the documents I'd signed, the lawsuit, the trial. Thomas took notes in a leather notebook. Patricia typed furiously on her laptop. Jennifer recorded everything on her phone. James brought us coffee. Terrible institutional coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, but I'd never been more grateful for anything. The emails, Patricia said, looking up from her screen. The prosecution presented 43 emails allegedly from you to Andrew demanding money, making threats. Do you use email regularly, Mrs. Miller? I check it maybe twice a week. I'm not very comfortable with technology. Patricia's eyes gleamed. And you've never used phrases like gonna, wanna, or ASAP in written communication? Never. I was an English major before nursing school. I write in complete sentences. Excellent. Patricia turned her laptop toward Thomas. Look at this. Email number 17, supposedly sent at 3:47 a.m. Andrew, I'm going to need that money ASAP or you're going to regret it. Mrs. Miller doesn't use those contractions, and she's never awake at 3:47 a.m. Thomas smiled grimly. They got sloppy. Keep going. The metadata shows all 43 emails originated from an IP address in Brooklyn, Patricia continued. Mrs. Miller lives in Queens and rarely leaves her neighborhood. The digital signature is cloned but imperfect. Whoever did this had moderate tech skills, not expert level. David Cooper, I said, the forensic accountant who testified against me. Could he have created the emails? Almost certainly, Patricia confirmed. And I'd bet my reputation the signature forgeries came from him, too. Thomas stood, pacing now. Jennifer, file an emergency motion for post-conviction relief based on newly discovered evidence. David, start a background check on David Cooper, Rachel Miller, and every witness who testified. I want to know what they had for breakfast 10 years ago. He turned to me. Mrs. Miller, we're going to dismantle this case piece by piece. But I need you to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. Your son conspired to send you to prison. When this comes out, it'll be public. Painful. Are you ready for that? I thought of Andrew's face in the courtroom, that triumphant smile as they read my sentence. I'm ready. By morning, Thomas's team had found their first crack in the facade. I'd been moved to a private holding room, Robert's influence at work again, and slept fitfully on a cot that was somehow better than the processing room chair. When Thomas arrived at 7 a.m. with fresh coffee and croissants from a real bakery, I almost cried. We found something, he said without preamble. David Cooper, your friendly neighborhood forensic accountant? He's not a CPA. He was until 3 years ago when the New York State Board revoked his license for falsifying client records. I set down my croissant. So he's already a proven liar. Gets better. We tracked his bank records, legally, through proper channels, Thomas added quickly. 3 months ago, he received a $30,000 wire transfer from an offshore account. 2 weeks after your conviction, another $70,000 was scheduled to transfer, but it hasn't gone through yet. Rachel and Andrew paid him. We think so, but we need to prove the connection. Thomas pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Recognize this man. The picture showed a man in his late 30s, handsome in a rough way, with dark hair and cold eyes. He was sitting at a restaurant table across from Rachel. My blood ran cold. That's not Andrew. No, this is Tyler Morrison. And Mrs. Miller, this is where things get interesting. Patricia Wong entered the room, laptop open, looking like she hadn't slept, but running on pure adrenaline. Helen, I need to show you something. It's going to be upsetting. She turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a series of text messages. Rachel, 2 years ago. Found the perfect target. Rich widow, weak son, no other family. Tyler, how much? Rachel, at least $800K in assets, plus the house. Clean record, trusting. This is the big one. Tyler, when do we move? Rachel, give me a year to marry him and gain access. Then we execute. I felt sick. She planned this from the beginning, before she even met Andrew. It gets worse, Patricia said gently. She scrolled to more recent messages, from just a week before my trial. Rachel, Cooper's testimony is locked in. The emails look perfect. Tyler, and the husband? Rachel, Andrew thinks we're keeping everything. He has no idea about you. Tyler, how long before you dump him? Rachel, 6 months after probate. Then we're on a beach in the Caymans with $2 million. Thomas leaned against the wall. Tyler Morrison is a professional con artist. He's done this before. Seduce someone, identify a wealthy mark, execute a long con. He served 3 years in Pennsylvania for elder fraud. And Rachel? I whispered. Rachel Thompson. That's her real name. She changed it to Rachel Morgan at 23. Grew up in Detroit. Mother was a drug addict. Father unknown. She dropped out of college, but her resume claims a bachelor's degree. Patricia pulled up another file. She met Tyler 6 years ago. They've run at least 2 other cons together. though we can't prove it yet. I thought of my son. Weak, yes. Easily influenced, absolutely. But also a victim in his own way. Does Andrew know about Tyler? Thomas shook his head. We don't think so. The messages suggest Rachel planned to take everything and disappear, leaving Andrew to face the consequences alone. My God! I put my head in my hands. He really thought they were partners in this. Your son is still culpable, Thomas said firmly. He chose to sue you, chose to testify against you, chose money over his mother. But yes, he's also being played. A knock at the door interrupted us. James Sullivan stepped in. Mr. Brennan, there's someone here to see Mrs. Miller. James stepped aside, and Robert Sterling walked into the room. I'd imagined this moment 100 times during the trial. Robert finding out what happened, rushing to my rescue, holding me while I cried. The reality was so much better. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled me into his arms, and held me so tightly I could barely breathe. He smelled like airplane air and expensive cologne and home. I'm so sorry, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. You're here now, I managed. That's all that matters. He pulled back to look at me, his hands framing my face. Helen, I swear to you, I'm going to fix this. Your son, his wife, everyone who did this to you, they're going to pay. Robert, there's something you need to know. About Andrew. I know about Andrew. His voice turned hard. Thomas briefed me on the flight. Your son conspired to send you to prison, and his wife planned to betray him too. I know all of it. He's still my son. Robert's expression softened slightly. I know, and when this is over, you'll decide how to handle that. But right now, we focus on getting you out of here and making sure justice is served. He turned to Thomas. What's our timeline? Emergency hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Judge Richards agreed to hear our motion for post-conviction relief. Thomas consulted his notes. We have Patricia's forensic analysis of the emails, proof of David Cooper's financial motive, and evidence of Rachel's conspiracy with Tyler Morrison. It's compelling, but we need more. Then get more, Robert said simply. Money is no object. Hire whoever you need. Get whatever evidence exists. I want this case destroyed. Patricia cleared her throat. There might be a shortcut. If David Cooper is willing to testify against Rachel and Andrew in exchange for a deal, Thomas nodded slowly. David's looking at serious prison time as an accessory to fraud. If we offer him immunity in exchange for full cooperation, do it, Robert said. Make him the deal. Get his confession on record. I'll contact the DA's office now, Thomas said, already pulling out his phone. I watched this unfold, still not quite believing it was real. 24 hours ago, I'd been a convicted felon heading to prison. Now I had a team of lawyers and a husband who could move mountains working to save me. Helen, Robert said quietly, taking my hand. I need to ask you something. Why didn't you tell me what was happening? I check my messages constantly. You could have reached me. I looked down at our intertwined fingers. I was ashamed. My own son was accusing me of stealing from him. I thought I could handle it myself, that the truth would come out and everything would be fine. I met his eyes. I was protecting you, too. You'd just lost your wife 3 years ago. I didn't want to burden you with my family drama. Your problems are my problems now, Robert said firmly. We're married, Helen, for better or worse, remember? This definitely qualifies as worse. Despite everything, I laughed. It felt strange, laughing in a detention center while facing 3 years in prison, but it also felt like breathing after being underwater. Tomorrow, Robert said. Tomorrow we start fighting back. By 6 p.m., Thomas had his deal. David Cooper, facing 15 years as an accessory to fraud and conspiracy, agreed to full cooperation in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Thomas brought him to a conference room at his law firm. I was there via video call from the detention center, Robert beside me holding my hand. David Cooper looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Mid-40s, thinning hair, nervous energy radiating from every pore. Mrs. Miller, he began, not quite meeting the camera. I need you to know I never intended for it to go this far. You testified under oath that I asked you to falsify financial records, I said coldly. You helped send an innocent woman to prison, so forgive me if I don't care about your intentions. David flinched. You're right. You're absolutely right. He took a breath. Rachel Thompson contacted me 4 months ago. She'd gotten my name from Tyler Morrison. We were cellmates in Pennsylvania years ago. She offered me $30,000 up front, $70,000 more after the trial. To do what exactly? Thomas asked. Create fake bank statements showing joint accounts between Helen Miller and her son Andrew. Fabricate transaction records showing Mrs. Miller withdrawing large sums. Clone her email signature and send threatening messages to Andrew. David's voice was mechanical now, reciting facts. I also coached Rachel on what to say in her testimony to make it sound credible. And the documents Mrs. Miller signed? Patricia prompted. Rachel brought them to me after Mrs. Miller signed. I altered the beneficiary designations, changed asset transfer clauses, added language creating joint accounts that didn't exist in the original version. He finally looked at the camera. Mrs. Miller, those documents you signed were legitimate estate planning forms. What Rachel submitted to the court were forgeries created from your real signatures. Robert's hand tightened on mine. Did Andrew Miller know about these alterations? Thomas asked. David hesitated. I don't think so. Rachel always came alone. She told me Andrew was squeamish about the details, that he just wanted his mother's money but didn't want to know how they were getting it. So Andrew knew enough to be guilty, but not enough to understand he was being played. Tell us about Tyler Morrison's role, Thomas continued. Tyler was the mastermind. He and Rachel have been running cons together for 6 years. This was supposed to be their retirement score. Get the mother's money, then Rachel would divorce Andrew, claim half of everything in the settlement, and disappear with Tyler to the Cayman Islands. Where they have a joint account, Patricia interjected, currently holding $380,000 of Helen Miller's money. David nodded miserably. Rachel transferred it 2 weeks before the trial. Insurance, she called it, in case something went wrong. Thomas leaned forward. Mr. Cooper, are you willing to testify to all of this under oath tomorrow in front of Judge Richards? Yes. I'll tell the truth. All of it. David looked at me again. Mrs. Miller, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I am truly sorry. I needed money. My daughter has medical bills, and I made terrible choices. That doesn't excuse what I did to you. No, I agreed. It doesn't. After David left, Thomas turned to the camera. This is good. This is very good. Between David's testimony, Patricia's forensic evidence, and the digital trail to Tyler Morrison, we have everything we need. What about Rachel and Andrew? Robert asked. Arrest warrants will be issued as soon as Judge Richards rules tomorrow. When he vacates Helen's conviction, the DA will immediately charge Rachel Miller, Tyler Morrison, and potentially Andrew Miller with conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, and a host of other charges. I felt a strange mixture of emotions, relief that the truth would finally come out, dread at what it would mean for Andrew, and underneath it all, a bone-deep exhaustion. Robert, I said quietly, I want to see Andrew before the hearing. I need to look him in the eye and ask him why. Robert looked like he wanted to argue, but he saw something in my expression that stopped him. If that's what you need, we'll make it happen. Thomas frowned. Mrs. Miller, I advise against contact with Andrew before the hearing. Anything you say could potentially— I don't care about the legal strategy right now, I interrupted. He's my son. Before the whole world knows what he did, I need to hear it from him. I need to understand. Thomas looked at Robert, who nodded. All right, Thomas said. I'll arrange it. But I'm coming with you, and everything will be recorded. For your protection. They brought Andrew to the detention center at 8 p.m. I sat in a small visiting room, Robert and Thomas waiting outside. Through the security glass, I watched my son enter, looking confused and wary. He picked up the phone. I picked up mine. Mom? What's going on? They said you requested to see me. For a long moment, I just looked at him. This man I'd given birth to, nursed through childhood illnesses, taught to ride a bike and tie his shoes and be kind to others. When had he become a stranger? "I'm getting out tomorrow, Andrew," I said quietly. "My conviction is being vacated. The truth is coming out." His face went pale. "What truth?" "That you and Rachel fabricated everything. That David Cooper falsified documents. That the emails were faked, the signatures forged. All of it lies." I kept my voice steady. "I know about Tyler Morrison, Andrew. I know Rachel's been planning to take the money and leave you." That's not..." He couldn't finish. "I need you to tell me something, and I need you to be honest. Did you know the evidence was fabricated? Did you know David Cooper was lying when he testified?" Andrew's hands shook. He set down the phone, put his face in his hands. When he picked it up again, his eyes were red. "I knew some of it wasn't exactly true," he whispered. "Rachel said we were just exaggerating. That you really had taken money from me. We were just making it look more official for the court." His voice broke. "She said you'd controlled me my whole life, that you'd never let me be independent, that this was the only way to get what should have been mine anyway." "So you believed her?" "I wanted to believe her." Tears ran down his face now. "Mom, I was drowning in debt. My job was on the line. Rachel said you were sitting on all this money while your own son struggled, and it wasn't fair. She made it sound so reasonable. Did you ever ask me for help, Andrew? Really ask, as my son, not as part of some scheme?" His silence was answer enough. "I would have given you everything," I said, my own voice breaking now. "Every penny I had if you'd just asked, if you'd come to me honestly and said you needed help. But instead you sent me to prison." "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it would go this far. I thought you'd just pay the settlement and it would be over. I didn't think they'd actually convict you. But they did. And you let them." I stood up, preparing to leave. "Mom, wait. What's going to happen to me?" I looked at my son one last time. "That's up to the district attorney now, Andrew, and God help you, because I don't think I can." I hung up the phone and walked away, leaving my son crying alone behind the glass. Tomorrow the truth would come out, and tomorrow my real fight would begin. The courtroom was packed at 9 a.m. I sat between Robert and Thomas at the defense table, wearing a navy dress Robert had brought me. Behind us, I could feel the weight of reporters, curious onlookers, and people who'd read about the mother who stole from her son and wanted to see what happened next. Across the aisle, Rachel sat with her attorney, a nervous-looking man named Brandon Hayes. She wore an expensive cream suit, and her hair was perfect, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She knew something was wrong. Andrew sat 3 rows back, alone. Our eyes met briefly, and he looked away. Judge Hamilton Richards entered, and we all stood. "This is an emergency hearing on a motion for post-conviction relief in the matter of the state versus Helen Miller," he began. "Mr. Brennan, you have new evidence?" "Substantial new evidence, Your Honor." Thomas stood, commanding the room. "Evidence that proves Mrs. Miller's conviction was obtained through fabricated documents, perjured testimony, and conspiracy to commit fraud." For the next hour, Thomas methodically destroyed the case against me. Patricia Wong presented her forensic analysis of the emails, showing IP addresses, metadata, linguistic patterns that proved they were fakes. She displayed side-by-side comparisons of my real signatures versus the forged ones, highlighting the subtle differences invisible to the untrained eye. Then came the bombshell. "Your Honor, I'd like to call David Cooper to the stand." Rachel's head snapped up. Brandon Hayes whispered urgently to her. I saw panic flash across her face. David took the stand, was sworn in, and proceeded to confess everything. The fake bank statements, the forged signatures, Rachel's payments, Tyler Morrison's involvement, the plan to frame me and steal my assets. "And did Andrew Miller know about these fabrications?" Thomas asked. David hesitated. "I never met with Andrew directly. All contact was through Rachel. She told me Andrew knew the evidence was enhanced but didn't want details." Rachel shot to her feet. He's lying. Your Honor, this man is a convicted fraudster trying to save himself. Sit down, Mrs. Miller, Judge Richards said sharply. You'll have your chance to respond. But Rachel's attorney looked sick. He leaned over and whispered something to her. She shook her head violently. Thomas continued. Your Honor, we have additional evidence. He nodded to Patricia, who pulled up bank records on a large screen. This is a joint account in the Cayman Islands held by Rachel Miller and Tyler Morrison. It currently contains $380,000. Money transferred from Helen Miller's accounts 2 weeks before the trial. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. We also have text messages between Rachel Miller and Tyler Morrison discussing their plan to defraud Mrs. Miller, frame her for theft, and flee the country. Thomas handed a file to the judge. These messages date back 2 years, proving this was a long-term conspiracy. Judge Richards reviewed the messages, his expression darkening with each page. Mrs. Miller, he addressed Rachel, do you wish to respond to these allegations? Rachel's attorney stood. Your Honor, I request a continuance to review this new evidence. Your Honor, Thomas interrupted, the state has asked me to inform the court that arrest warrants for Rachel Miller and Tyler Morrison are being issued as we speak, charging conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, forgery, and theft. The courtroom erupted. Judge Richards banged his gavel. Order! I will have order! I watched Rachel's face drain of all color. She looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route. Her attorney was gathering his papers, clearly preparing to distance himself from her. Based on the evidence presented, Judge Richards said, his voice cutting through the noise, I am immediately vacating Helen Miller's conviction. All charges are dismissed with prejudice. He turned to look at me directly. Mrs. Miller, on behalf of this court, I offer my sincerest apologies. What happened to you represents a profound failure of our justice system. You never should have been convicted, and you certainly never should have spent a single day in custody. I couldn't speak. Robert squeezed my hand. Bailiff, the judge continued, please take Rachel Miller into custody pending formal charges. 2 officers moved toward Rachel. She backed away, pointing at Andrew. This was his idea. He wanted the money. I just helped him get it. Her voice was shrill, desperate. Andrew, tell them this was your plan. Andrew stood, face stricken. Rachel, what are you? We never talked about Tyler or the Caymans or... You knew? She screamed as the officers grabbed her arms. You knew we were setting her up. Don't you dare play innocent now. They led her away, still screaming, still trying to blame Andrew. The courtroom was chaos. Reporters rushed out to file their stories. People were talking over each other. Brandon Hayes looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. And I sat there, free, vindicated, but feeling strangely hollow. I'd won, but the cost was devastating. 3 days later, I was home in Queens, trying to reassemble my life. Robert had offered to have me stay at his Westchester estate, but I needed to be in my own house, surrounded by my own things. He understood, though he insisted on hiring security to watch the property. Thomas called on Thursday morning. Helen, we need to talk. My investigator found something. Can Robert and I come over? They arrived an hour later, and I knew from Thomas's expression that whatever he'd found was serious. What is it? Thomas opened his briefcase and pulled out a file. During our background investigation of Andrew, we discovered something. He has a son. The world tilted. That's impossible. Andrew doesn't have children. He does. Thomas slid a photograph across my coffee table. This is Daniel Bennett. He's 14 years old. His mother is Sarah Bennett, Andrew's girlfriend from 15 years ago. I picked up the photo with shaking hands. The boy had Andrew's eyes, the same dark hair, the same slight smile. My grandson. I had a grandson I'd never known about. Where are they? I whispered. The Bronx. Sarah's raising Daniel alone. She works as a waitress. Robert's voice was gentle. Helen, there's more. Daniel has type 1 diabetes. The insulin costs about $800 a month, and Sarah's insurance barely covers half. She contacted Andrew 4 years ago asking for child support, Thomas added. He refused, told her to stop harassing him. I felt rage, hot and pure, flood through me. My son had abandoned his child, left a boy to grow up without a father while struggling financially, and he'd had the audacity to accuse me of being selfish with money. I want to meet them, I said. Today. Now. Robert exchanged a glance with Thomas. Are you sure? This is a lot to process. I've already lost 15 years with my grandson because Andrew hid him from me. I won't lose another day. Sarah Bennett lived in a fourth-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better days 30 years ago. Robert insisted on coming with me, along with one security guard who waited in the car. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding. A woman in her early 40s answered, wearing a waitress uniform and looking exhausted. When she saw me, recognition flashed across her face. Mrs. Miller? I saw you on the news. The trial and then... She trailed off. I'm so sorry to show up unannounced. May I come in? Sarah stepped back, letting us enter a small apartment that was clean but sparse. A teenage boy sat at the kitchen table doing homework, and when he looked up, I saw Andrew's face at 14 staring back at me. Daniel, Sarah said quietly, this is your grandmother. The boy's eyes went wide. I have a grandmother? I crossed the room and knelt in front of him, not caring about my knees protesting. Yes, sweetheart, you do. And I had no idea you existed until today, or I would have been here years ago. Dad said we didn't have any other family, Daniel said cautiously. He said it was just him and me, but he was too busy to visit. The casual way he accepted his father's abandonment broke my heart. Your father made a lot of mistakes, I said carefully. Big ones. But you are not a mistake, Daniel. You're a gift I didn't know I'd been given. Sarah made coffee while I talked with Daniel. He was smart, funny, mature beyond his years, and that way kids who've had to grow up fast always are. He told me about school, about wanting to be a doctor someday, about the diabetes he'd been managing since he was 8. Mom works really hard, he said, looking at Sarah with open adoration. 2 jobs sometimes. I help out where I can. I glanced at Robert, who nodded. Daniel, how would you feel about transferring to a better school, with a stronger science program to help you prepare for medical school? The boy's face lit up, then fell. We can't afford private school. I can, I said simply. And I'm going to. Your medical expenses, too. Everything you need. Sarah started crying. Mrs. Miller, after what Andrew did to you, why would you help us? Because you did nothing wrong. Because Daniel is my grandson, and I've already missed too much of his life. I took her hand. And because families take care of each other. Real families. Robert cleared his throat. There's also the matter of back child support. 15 years' worth. I've already instructed my attorneys to file a petition on Daniel's behalf against Andrew. Sarah shook her head. I don't want anything from Andrew. He made his choice. This isn't about Andrew, Robert said firmly. It's about Daniel getting what he's owed. What he should have had all along. We stayed for 2 more hours, making plans, exchanging phone numbers, promising to have dinner that weekend. As we left, Daniel hugged me. A real hug. All awkward teenage limbs and genuine affection. Thanks, Grandma, he whispered. I cried all the way home. 2 weeks later, Andrew requested to see me. Rachel was in jail, denied bail after prosecutors proved she was a flight risk. Tyler Morrison had been arrested in Miami, trying to board a plane to Brazil. The DA was building a case against Andrew, though his cooperation and David Cooper's testimony suggested he might avoid prison with probation and restitution. I almost said no to the meeting, but I needed closure. We met at my house. Thomas insisted on being present, sitting quietly in the corner while Andrew and I faced each other across my kitchen table. I know about Daniel, I said without preamble. Andrew closed his eyes. Mom, 15 years. You hid my grandson from me for 15 years. My voice shook with anger I'd been holding back. You abandoned your own child, left him and his mother to struggle, and then you had the nerve to accuse me of being selfish. I was scared, Andrew said weakly. I was 30 when Sarah got pregnant. I wasn't ready to be a father. I thought if I just ignored it, it would go away. Children don't go away, Andrew. They grow up. And Daniel grew up without a father because you were a coward. I know. Tears streamed down his face. I know I was wrong. About Daniel, about you, about everything. Rachel convinced me that you were the problem, that you controlled me, that I'd never be successful unless I broke free from you. And I believed her because it was easier than admitting I was a failure. You weren't a failure until you chose to become one. Andrew flinched. You're right. I made terrible choices. I let Rachel manipulate me. I participated in sending my own mother to prison. He looked at me with red, swollen eyes. But I never knew about Tyler. I didn't know Rachel was planning to take everything and leave me. I thought we were partners. You were both willing to destroy me for money, I said coldly. Whether you knew about Tyler or not, you chose greed over your mother. That's unforgivable, Andrew. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I sat back, studying the man who used to be my little boy. The DA is offering you a deal. 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, full restitution of my legal fees and the money you stole. You'll have a criminal record. I'll take it, Andrew said immediately. Whatever they want. There are conditions. My conditions. I pulled out a document Thomas had prepared. You will formally acknowledge Daniel as your son. You will pay 15 years of back child support at the rate the court determines. You will pay monthly child support going forward, and you will not contact me for 5 years unless I reach out first. Andrew stared at the paper. 5 years? You sent me to prison for 3. You get 5 to think about what you did, to rebuild your life, to hopefully become someone worthy of being called my son again. I slid the document toward him. If you truly change, if you become the man I raised you to be, maybe we can talk then. But right now, I need you out of my life. I need to heal. Andrew picked up the pen with a shaking hand and signed. I love you, Mom, he whispered as he left. I know I don't deserve to say that, but I do. I didn't respond. I just watched him go. The garden behind my house in Queens had never looked better. Robert had hired landscapers, but I did most of the work myself, finding peace in the rhythm of planting and weeding and nurturing things that grew. Daniel sat on the patio doing homework, his diabetes monitor beeping softly beside him. He came over every Tuesday and Thursday after school, and we'd fallen into an easy routine. Homework, then dinner, then he'd read to me from whatever book he was studying in English class. Sarah had a new job, better hours, better pay, thanks to a connection of Robert's. She and I had coffee every Sunday morning, 2 women who'd been abandoned by the same man, now building our own family. Robert came out of the house carrying lemonade and cookies. Mail came, he said, handing me an envelope. It was from Andrew. He wrote once a month, long letters about his community service at a homeless shelter, his therapy sessions, his job at a nonprofit. He'd moved into a studio apartment, was paying his child support faithfully, had even asked Sarah if he could see Daniel once a month. She'd agreed, supervised visits only. Daniel went reluctantly at first, but he said Andrew seemed different, quieter, sadder, maybe genuine. I didn't respond to the letters. Not yet. Maybe someday. Grandma, I got an A on my chemistry test, Daniel called out, holding up his paper. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I called back. Robert sat beside me, taking my hand. We'd had a proper wedding last month. Small, intimate, with Sarah and Daniel, with James Sullivan and his granddaughter, with the few friends who'd stood by me through everything. What are you thinking about? Robert asked. How strange life is. 6 months ago, I was in handcuffs, convicted of crimes I didn't commit, abandoned by my son. Today, I have you. I have Daniel. I have a family I chose instead of one I was born into. Do you think you'll ever forgive Andrew? I watched Daniel laugh at something on his phone, so young and full of potential. I don't know. Maybe forgiveness isn't the right word. Maybe it's more like letting go. He's my son, and some part of me will always love him. But he's not my family anymore. Not the way you are, the way Daniel and Sarah are. I leaned against Robert's shoulder. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who choose to stand by you when everything falls apart. It's the corrections officer who made a phone call when he had every reason not to. It's the grandson I never knew I needed. It's the man who flew across an ocean to save me. And it's the woman strong enough to save herself, Robert added. You put that note in James Sullivan's hands. You made the choice to fight back. Daniel came over, plopping down on the grass at our feet. Grandma, can you help me with my history essay? It's about people who changed history through small acts of courage. I smiled. I think I might know something about that. As the sun set over Queens, I sat with my real family, the one I'd built from broken pieces, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. My son had tried to destroy me. He'd failed. And in the wreckage of that betrayal, I'd found something more valuable than the money he'd tried to steal. I'd found myself again.